Have you ever noticed something strange? The more you explain yourself, the less people seem to understand you. It's as if every word you speak becomes another weapon they can use against you. They don't ask for explanations because they care. Most of the time, they're searching for cracks in your confidence. They're waiting for you to justify your choices so they can judge them, question them, or laugh at them. From the day you're born, you're trained to seek approval. Explain why you're late. Explain why you're different. Explain why you said no. Explain why you're chasing a dream nobody believes in. You spend years standing in an invisible courtroom, defending your life before people who were never appointed as your judges. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The people demanding explanations rarely change their opinions after hearing them. They've already written the story in their minds. Your words don't erase their assumptions. They only give those assumptions more material to play with. The strongest people in the room aren't the ones with the longest arguments. They're the ones who understand that silence has a power explanations can never match. They know that confidence doesn't beg to be understood. It doesn't chase acceptance. It simply moves forward while the world keeps talking. Every unnecessary explanation is a silent confession that someone else's opinion holds more value than your own decision. And the moment you stop defending every choice, something unexpected happens. The noise around you gets louder, but your mind becomes quieter. Stop seeking approval. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Yet it's one of the hardest addictions to break because nobody calls it an addiction. They call it being polite, being responsible, being respectful. They wrap chains in beautiful words until you forget you're wearing them. From the moment you could speak, you were taught to look at other people's faces before trusting your own instincts. You learned that a smile meant you were acceptable, and a frown meant you had done something wrong. Little by little, your identity stopped belonging to you. It became a collection of reactions borrowed from everyone else. Every compliment felt like oxygen. Every criticism felt like suffocation. You weren't living your life anymore. You were performing for an audience that changed its expectations every single day. The strange part is that the audience never stays the same. Make one person happy, and another finds a reason to complain. Follow one set of rules, and someone else hands you a completely different book. They don't agree with each other, yet somehow you're expected to satisfy all of them at once. It's a game designed so that no matter how well you play, you always lose something. Approval is the reward they place in front of you, just close enough to keep you chasing it, but never close enough to let you hold it. Every time you think you've earned it, the finish line quietly moves. Now they want you to dress differently, speak differently, think differently, smile more, stay quiet, be ambitious, but not too ambitious. Be confident, but don't make anyone uncomfortable. Be yourself, but only the version they approve of. Isn't that amusing? People say they admire authenticity, but the moment you stop acting according to their expectations, they become uncomfortable. They don't reject your mistakes first. They reject your freedom. Because someone who no longer needs approval becomes impossible to control. A person who isn't afraid of disapproval cannot be manipulated with guilt, shame, or empty opinions. Watch carefully how people react. When you stop explaining every decision, some will call you arrogant. Others will say, "You've changed." A few will accuse you of becoming cold. But what they're really saying is something much simpler. They can no longer predict you. They can no longer pull your strings. Think about how much energy disappears every single day trying to convince strangers that you're good enough. Hours spent rewriting messages before sending them. Nights replaying conversations in your head, wondering if someone misunderstood you. Days changing your behavior because you fear someone might not like the real version of you. Imagine carrying that weight for years without realizing you were the one holding it. The world has an endless supply of judges, but almost none of them are willing to carry the consequences of your decisions. They'll criticize your career while risking nothing themselves. They'll question your dreams without sacrificing a single night's sleep for them. They'll tell you what you should have done, but disappear the moment life hands you the bill. So why hand them the authority to decide your worth? The loudest opinions often come from people who abandoned their own dreams long ago. Watching someone choose freedom reminds them of the risks they were too afraid to take. It's easier to criticize courage than admit fear. Easier to laugh at confidence than confront insecurity. Approval feels warm because it comforts the ego, but comfort has a price. Every time you depend on someone else's validation, you quietly surrender another piece of your independence. Soon you don't know whether your choices belong to you or to the people clapping in the background. And applause is dangerous because it disappears. The moment the performance ends, your value was never hidden inside another person's opinion. It was buried beneath years of seeking permission to exist exactly as you are. The moment you stop chasing approval, people lose one of the easiest ways to control your emotions. Their praise no longer intoxicates you, and their criticism no longer poisons you. Their approval becomes a preference instead of a necessity. And that's when your decisions begin to reflect your own mind instead of the crowd's expectations. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People mistake it for weakness because they've been taught that the loudest voice always wins. They believe every accusation deserves an answer, every insult demands a response, and every misunderstanding must be corrected. What they fail to realize is that not every battle deserves your attention. Some fights exist for only one reason: to pull you down to the level where chaos becomes normal. The world has become addicted to noise. Everyone wants an opinion. Everyone wants an explanation. Everyone believes they deserve access to your thoughts simply because they're curious. But curiosity isn't entitlement. Just because someone asks a question doesn't mean they've earned the answer. Sometimes people aren't looking for truth. They're looking for ammunition. Watch how quickly conversations change when you refuse to react. The person expecting an argument becomes restless. The one waiting for your anger grows impatient. The one hoping to expose your emotions suddenly has nothing to work with. They came prepared for a fight, but instead they find a wall that refuses to crack. Silence unsettles people because it leaves them alone with their own assumptions. Most individuals are comfortable when they can predict your reactions. They know which words make you angry, which comments make you defensive, and which insults force you to prove yourself. Once they discover those buttons, they press them whenever they need control. But silence removes the buttons. Suddenly, the game they've mastered stops working. Think about how often people talk themselves into trouble. One unnecessary sentence becomes 5. 5 become 20. Soon they're explaining things nobody questioned, revealing insecurities nobody noticed, and defending choices nobody cared about until they started defending them. Fear has a strange habit of talking too much. Confidence rarely needs to. There is something powerful about looking someone in the eyes without feeling the need to fill every moment with words. It sends a message stronger than any carefully crafted speech. It tells the world that your peace is more valuable than winning a pointless argument, that your confidence isn't built on convincing strangers, that your identity doesn't depend on constant approval. People often believe silence means you have no answer. That's the illusion they comfort themselves with. In reality, silence often means you've recognized that the other person isn't searching for understanding. They're searching for victory. And there is no victory in arguing with someone whose mind was already made up before the conversation even began. Notice how storms behave. They arrive loudly, demanding attention from everyone around them. They shake windows, create panic, and make people believe they'll last forever. But eventually, the storm exhausts itself. The sky never argues with it. It simply waits. There is a lesson hidden in that. Not everything deserves resistance. Some things destroy themselves if you stop feeding them. The strongest minds understand that words have value because they are limited. Speak constantly, and every sentence becomes cheaper than the last. Speak only when necessary, and people begin listening differently. Silence creates space. Space creates mystery. Mystery creates respect. Humans naturally fear what they cannot easily read. There will always be people desperate to provoke you. They throw criticism like bait into the water, hoping your emotions bite first. They measure success by how much control they have over your reactions. Every angry reply, every defensive explanation, every emotional outburst convinces them they've won. They didn't defeat your argument. They simply borrowed your peace. Remaining silent isn't about pretending nothing happened. It isn't about accepting disrespect or ignoring reality. It's about recognizing the difference between responding with purpose and reacting without control. One is a choice. The other is a trap disguised as justice. When you no longer feel compelled to answer every accusation or satisfy every opinion, something unexpected begins to happen. The noise around you remains exactly the same, but it loses its ability to enter your mind. People continue speaking because talking is easy, judging is easy, assuming is easy. But your silence quietly reminds them that not every door opens just because someone knocks, and not every voice deserves an audience inside your mind. Protect your confidence, because the world will try to borrow it, break it, and convince you that you never deserved it in the first place. Confidence isn't stolen in one dramatic moment. It disappears quietly, one opinion at a time, one unnecessary apology, one comparison, one explanation. Before you realize what's happening, you've handed strangers the power to decide how you feel about yourself. Most people don't attack your confidence directly. They're much smarter than that. They disguise doubt as advice. They call criticism honesty. They label fear as realism. They'll tell you to lower your expectations so you won't be disappointed. They'll encourage you to play it safe because that's what made them feel comfortable. It sounds caring on the surface, but underneath it hides something dangerous. People often project the limits they've accepted onto those who still believe they can go further. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable, confident people make insecure people feel? Not because confidence is offensive, but because it reflects everything they've chosen to ignore within themselves. A person who believes in their own path reminds others of the roads they were too afraid to walk. Instead of questioning their fear, they question your certainty. It's easier to criticize someone else's ambition than to admit you've abandoned your own. Confidence doesn't mean believing you'll never fail. That's fantasy. Real confidence is walking forward, even when failure is standing right in front of you, smiling. It's understanding that mistakes don't erase your value. They reveal your courage. The crowd laughs at failure because they only watch the fall. They never see the strength it took to jump. The problem begins when you allow every outside voice to enter your mind without permission. Imagine leaving your front door unlocked every hour of the day. Anyone could walk in, rearrange your furniture, throw away what matters, and leave behind their own mess. Yet that's exactly what many people do with their thoughts. Every opinion becomes a guest. Every criticism becomes a permanent resident. Soon your own voice becomes the quietest one in the room. People who lack confidence spend enormous amounts of energy proving themselves. They rehearse conversations before they happen. They replay conversations after they're over. They wonder if they sounded intelligent enough, attractive enough, successful enough. Their minds become prisons built from imaginary judgments. The exhausting part is that most of those judgments never existed outside their own imagination. The truth is unsettling. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to think about you as much as you believe they do. While you're losing sleep over one awkward sentence, they're worrying about their own mistakes. The audience you fear is often too distracted by its own performance to notice yours. Confidence grows in silence, not in constant validation. Every time you depend on applause, you give someone else control over your emotional balance. If compliments create your confidence, criticism will destroy it. That's why approval is such a fragile foundation. The same crowd cheering today can disappear tomorrow. Build your identity on their voices, and you'll collapse the moment they become quiet. The strongest confidence comes from promises you keep to yourself. Waking up when you said you would. Finishing what you started. Standing by your principles, even when nobody is watching. Every small act of discipline becomes evidence that you can trust yourself. That trust becomes stronger than any compliment another person could ever offer. There will always be someone who thinks you're not good enough, too quiet, too loud, too ambitious, too different, too ordinary. The labels never end because they're not really describing you. They're describing the expectations inside someone else's mind. If you spend your life chasing every changing opinion, you'll eventually lose sight of your own reflection. Protecting your confidence also means choosing where your attention goes. Not every insult deserves space in your thoughts. Not every critic deserves a seat at your table. Some people only feel powerful when they make others question themselves. They throw doubt like poison, hoping you'll drink it willingly. The moment you accept their version of your worth, they've already accomplished their goal. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's refusing to let fear become your identity. It's looking at uncertainty without asking permission to continue. It's understanding that your value doesn't rise when people praise you or fall when they criticize you. The moment you stop placing your self-worth into the hands of strangers, you become difficult to manipulate, difficult to intimidate, and impossible to control through the simple weapon of someone else's opinion. Let your actions speak, because words have become the cheapest currency in the world. Anyone can make promises. Anyone can claim they're different. Anyone can talk about discipline, loyalty, ambition, or success. The mouth has no entry fee. It costs nothing to create an image with words. That's why so many people hide behind them. Talking creates the illusion of progress, while accomplishing absolutely nothing. Listen carefully to the people who constantly announce what they're going to become. They describe their future with perfect confidence. They explain every plan in detail. They paint pictures so convincing that even they begin believing them. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass. The speeches grow longer, but the results never arrive. They confuse movement with momentum. They mistake conversation for achievement. Real strength behaves differently. It doesn't introduce itself every 5 minutes. It doesn't knock on every door asking for recognition. It doesn't demand applause before the work has even begun. It stays quiet while everyone else is busy making announcements. Then one day, without warning, the results appear. Suddenly, people ask where the success came from, as if it happened overnight. They never saw the lonely mornings, the silent sacrifices, or the invisible battles, because none of those moments needed an audience. People often explain themselves because they fear being misunderstood. They believe if they say enough, everyone will finally see their intentions. But intentions don't change reality. Results do. You can spend hours convincing people that you're honest, hardworking, or capable, but a single action will communicate those qualities more clearly than 1,000 carefully chosen sentences. Think about how quickly trust disappears when words stop matching behavior. Someone can promise loyalty every day, but one act of betrayal destroys every speech that came before it. Another person may rarely speak at all, yet years of consistent actions create a reputation that no accusation can easily break. That's the difference between noise and substance. Noise demands attention. Substance earns respect. The world has become obsessed with appearances. Everyone wants to look successful before becoming successful. They post victories before earning them. They celebrate dreams before building them. They chase the image instead of the reality, because images are easier to create than discipline. It's much easier to announce a goal than to quietly suffer through the process required to reach it. Notice how people react when you stop telling them everything. They become uncomfortable. They ask what you're planning, where you're going, why you've been so quiet. They expect another explanation because that's what most people offer. But when your actions replace your announcements, curiosity begins to replace judgment. Mystery has a strange way of commanding attention without asking for it. There will always be critics standing on the sidelines, offering advice about games they've never played. They'll explain how you should live while avoiding risks in their own lives. They'll predict your failure before you've even taken the first step. Arguing with them changes nothing. Every minute spent defending your path is a minute stolen from actually walking it. Imagine two people standing side by side. One speaks endlessly about discipline, success, and greatness. The other says very little, but shows up every single day, doing the work without excuses. At first, the talker receives more attention because confidence sounds impressive. But time is ruthless. It exposes every empty promise. Eventually, words fade into the background, while consistent action becomes impossible to ignore. Silence combined with action creates a kind of power that explanations never can. It forces people to judge you by reality instead of assumptions. It removes unnecessary arguments because evidence leaves very little room for debate. Success doesn't waste time proving itself. It simply exists. The strongest response to doubt isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It isn't endless justification. It's progress. Every step forward answers questions that conversations never could. Every achievement quietly dismantles criticism without saying a single word. The people waiting for you to fail become confused because you never paused long enough to argue with them. Many people spend so much time trying to convince others that they're capable that they never become capable. They protect their image instead of building their character. But character isn't built through speeches. It's built through repetition, discipline, sacrifice, and choices made when nobody is watching. Your actions reveal your priorities, your habits, expose your mindset, and your consistency tells a story that no explanation can ever rewrite. Own your decisions, because the moment you let other people make choices for your life, you also hand them control over your future. It's a strange bargain. They tell you what to do, how to think, what dreams are realistic, what risks are acceptable, and what kind of life you should live. Then, when everything falls apart, they quietly disappear, leaving you alone with consequences that were never theirs to carry. Most people aren't afraid of making the wrong decision. They're afraid of being blamed for it. That's why they spend their lives collecting opinions from everyone around them. They ask friends, family, strangers, and critics what they should do, hoping someone else will remove the burden of uncertainty. But uncertainty never disappears. It simply changes owners. If your decision succeeds, everyone claims they believed in you from the beginning. If it fails, the same voices suddenly remind you that the final choice was always yours. Life has a cruel sense of humor. The people giving you directions rarely know where they're going themselves. They speak with confidence because confidence sounds convincing, not because certainty exists. They offer advice based on their fears, their experiences, and their limitations. Then they expect you to wear those limitations as if they were your own. Look around carefully. How many people are living lives they never truly wanted? Not because they lacked talent, but because they kept waiting for permission. Permission to change careers. Permission to leave unhealthy relationships. Permission to say no. Permission to dream bigger than the expectations surrounding them. They became prisoners of invisible approval, convincing themselves that obedience was the same thing as peace. The uncomfortable truth is that every important decision demands sacrifice. Choose one path, and another disappears forever. There is no perfect option where everyone applauds and nobody gets disappointed. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will question your motives. Someone will insist you've made a mistake. If your goal is universal approval, You'll spend your entire life standing still. People often mistake responsibility for weakness. They believe admitting ownership means admitting defeat. So they invent excuses. They blame timing, circumstances, luck, society, or other people. Anything except the person staring back at them in the mirror. Excuses provide temporary comfort, but comfort has an expiration date. Reality always collects what avoidance borrows. Owning your decisions doesn't mean pretending every choice will succeed. Failure is part of every meaningful journey. The difference is that failure becomes a teacher when you accept responsibility, and becomes a prison when you spend your energy searching for someone else to blame. Every mistake contains a lesson, but only for those willing to claim it. Notice how people react when you make choices they don't understand. They become experts overnight. Suddenly, they know exactly what you should have done. They analyze your life with confidence because they never had to live it. Advice is always cheaper when someone else pays the price. The strongest individuals aren't those who never make mistakes. They're the ones who refuse to hide behind excuses after making them. They understand that regret fades faster than dependency. Living with a difficult decision is painful. Living with a life controlled by someone else's expectations is even worse. There will always be voices telling you to stay where it's safe. Stay quiet. Stay ordinary. Stay predictable. They don't fear your failure as much as they fear your freedom. Because someone who takes responsibility for every choice becomes impossible to manipulate through guilt or approval. That kind of person no longer waits for permission to act. They stop asking whether everyone agrees and start asking whether the decision aligns with their own principles. Freedom has a cost that many people aren't willing to pay. It demands accountability. It demands courage. It demands accepting that every victory belongs to you and every mistake belongs to you as well. There is no audience left to blame. No convenient excuse waiting in the shadows. Just your choices and the life they create. When you truly own your decisions, something changes inside you. Fear loses its authority because you're no longer trying to build a perfect story for other people. You stop defending every step you take. You stop apologizing for choosing your own direction. You understand that your life is not a public vote. Your purpose isn't determined by popular opinion, and your future should never be surrendered to the comfort of someone else's expectations or the prison of their approval.